Hello and welcome everybody to this Ranorex live webinar. I'm Martin, I'm part of the engineering team here at Ranorex in Austria, and I will do this best practices using Ranorex Studio webinar for you today. Before we begin with the webinar itself, may I ask the audience if you're able to hear my voice, also if you are able to see the slideshow on your screen, so please provide a short feedback about that through the questions panel of GoToWebinar. I will wait for short feedback and then I will start with the presentation itself. This GoToWebinar questions panel is usually located on the upper right corner, so I've already received some feedback. Thank you for that. For this webinar, if you have questions, please write the question through this questions panel to me. I will read out the question and then I will answer the question. All right, so let's take a look on the agenda of this webinar today. At the beginning, I will give you a general overview about Ranorex itself. The main part will be a live demonstration. I will do a demo for you where I will show to you best practices using Ranorex Studio, and at the end I will show you also some summing up slides, and during the presentation please feel free to write questions to me through this question panel. As mentioned before, I will read this question out and answer it. I will try to answer these questions immediately if it's related to the topic I'm currently talking about, but at least at the very end of the webinar I will go over all your questions and provide answers for that. For your information, this webinar is also recorded, so after the webinar you will receive a follow-up email including this link to download the video of this session. We will also include further information about Ranorex, and also our contact details will be in the follow-up email as well. Alright, so let's start over. Let's take a look on the general overview about Ranorex. Ranorex is a test automation tool supporting different UI technologies you can automate with Ranorex. Mobile applications, client applications, and also web applications. All these UI technologies are supported by one single tool. It is Ranorex Studio. This is the central tool in the Ranorex Studio. You will have a test suite. In the test suite you can define your test cases, and you can later also integrate this test suite, including all your test cases, into existing environments. For example, if you have a test management system already in your company, or if you plan to use a test management system, then we offer an integration into several test management tools. A few are listed here. So the main tools are Quality Center of HP and Microsoft Test Manager. So we offer seamless integration into test management systems. On the other hand, if you are coming more from the developer side, if you have a continuous integration process in your company, then we also do support seamless integration into continuous integration processes as well. So maybe you already have a build server running in your company, then you can also use exactly this infrastructure as well to run Ranorex test cases. Again, one tool, Ranorex Studio, supporting different UI technologies, and we offer the possibility to integrate this into test management tools, also continuous integration tools, or task scheduling tools. If we take a close look on the technology overview, then you will see again desktop, web, and mobile. And yeah, you can say that you can automate nearly everything which is available on your Windows desktop. So it doesn't matter if it's Qt, Java, SAP, .NET WinForms, WPF. So all is supported by Ranorex, also for web technologies. Within the common browsers Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, and Firefox, you can automate Flash flags, JavaScript frameworks, Java as well. So everything is also supported by Ranorex there. And for mobile, we currently support Android and iOS, and within Android and iOS you can also automate native apps, web apps, and also hybrid apps. These hybrid apps are combinations of mobile web technology and native app technology on the mobile device, like PhoneGap is using, for example, this approach. So within that webinar, we will mainly talk first of all about maintenance and optimization. I will show you an existing recording. I will show you how to modify such an existing recording. I will also talk about synchronization, about object identification, and I will also show you how to set up a data-driven test using an external data source. Then we will go into a short break, and after that short break I will talk about error handling. I will show you how to fix errors with Ranorex Report. I will also show you how to work with user code in Ranorex. So it's not needed to write user code in Ranorex, but we offer the possibility, and for the developers in the audience I want to show this as well. It also highlights the flexibility of Ranorex, that you can go into user code in a recording, for example, and add several functionalities, extended functionalities in user code. I will also show you how to create a test manual in Ranorex, and at the very end I will also run the Ranorex test suite from the command line, and then I will also show you the program arguments which are supported by the test suite execution from the command line as well. I hope you are fine with these points here, and again, if you have a question, please use this questions panel. And yeah, I think we should start over. I guess you want to see the tool in the live demo here. And before we do that, may I ask the audience if you already attended one of our webinars? So we do offer startup webinars. These are the mobile webinar and the desktop web webinar. May I ask if you already attended these webinars? So please respond to this poll so that I know that you already attended or not. So there are already a few who didn't attend a startup webinar so far. In the startup webinar, we present basically how to record some actions and how the repository and UI mapping is working and things like that. So I will not go into much detail about this basic stuff about Ranorex. So I can offer the following for those who didn't attend the startup webinar so far. Please take a look on the recorded webinars. I can also send you a link of a recorded webinar from the mobile webinar or the desktop and web webinar. It is also available in our webinar archive video page. So if you are interested in that, just let me know. Just reply to the follow-up email you want to get a video of a startup webinar. Then we provide these links as well to download that. Okay? So thank you for voting on that. And yeah, we will start now with the live demonstration here. I will go into Ranorex Studio. It's already open in the background, and here you see I already have an existing recording where I have several actions in there. And yeah, I want to show you now how you can analyze this and how you can delete actions which are actually not needed. Imagine this recording I did previously or a colleague of mine did, and yeah, let's go through this step by step. You see action number 1, it is running my application through a specified path. So by the way, let me show you the application we are talking about here. So this is the application we are working on now. That is a very simple VIP database application. You can just add in some values to the database. So very simple stuff. We are working on that now. So at the beginning, I'm running my application. Then I see action number 2. It is closing something, and I already see here, okay, it is a Windows Explorer window which I was closing here. So it looks like while recording, this user was closing the Windows desktop window, so it was cleaning up his environment. So actually at the time I don't have this open anymore. If you play back this recording, it will not succeed because the Windows desktop window is not there anymore, and action number 2 is going to close that. So therefore we don't need that anymore. So keep in mind when you are recording that the recorder really records everything. Okay, if you close your application, another application, or if you open the start menu, things like that will be recorded, and next time it will try to play back this as well. So just make sure you only have actions in your recording which you're actually really needing. So like action number 2, a scrolling action, also we don't need that. Like the same here, the mouse wheel action for scrolling down, we don't need that, we delete that as well. Also here, this user was switching the task as well, he was changing through the taskbar to the actual application. Also that is not needed, Ranorex does that for you automatically. If you want to switch between two applications, you don't have to care about that. Just perform an action on the other application, like a mouse click on an input field. It will automatically switch the application for you. So therefore, we don't need that action, and we don't need that action. So finally, we deleted these unneeded actions, and we have now here first real action we are wanted to be executed on playback. It is a mouse click on the first name field here. As you can see, we need that. After that, I was typing in John to the input field here, and we have here also Ranorex recording events from the keyboard, left shift key down, left shift key up. So Ranorex really records everything coming through the user interface from the keyboard, for example. You can leave it as it is. You can also type in here John. That will also work, and it's better to read here in the action table of the recorder. Action number 4, that's a mouse click on the last name field, and this screenshot always gives you a screenshot of the application under test in the state when you were recording. As you can see here, we were typing in here Travolta, and we have here now 2 key sequences because there was some time between the A and the V, and therefore Ranorex created 2 key sequences for me, so I can also merge these 2 key sequences into one through the context menu. Action number 6, mouse click on the movie list item. Action number 7, mouse click on the radio button mail. Action number 8, that's a mouse click on the button add. And action number 9, that is validation against my element VIP count 1. I'm validating the text of that element, which should be VIP count 1 at this time. Last but not least, I'm closing the application. So I have here 10 actions in my action table, and yeah, let's play back these 10 actions, and you will see now a user simulation. So the application gets launched, my mouse will move to the first name field, it types in, then it clicks on the last name field, types in Travolta, click on the movie list item, click on the radio button mail, add this element to the database, then do the validation, close the application, and that's it. We get now a report logging here, and in that logging I see, alright, my actions were executed, and in green letters I see the successful validation over there. Okay, so I showed to you now how to maintain an existing recording, going over the recording, delete unneeded actions, and also maybe type in, instead of having here also the right shift key down and right shift key up event, you just can also type in the value here. So my recording is now better readable, and only the 10 actions I really need are in there. Any questions until now about modifying an existing recording module? All right, so it looks like no questions are here at this point. So we'll wait for a few more seconds. Did everybody get the chance to vote on that? Okay, let's wait for 5 more seconds. But the majority already voted on that, so thank you for that. No questions are there at the time. Now, let me move on. I want to talk about synchronization now. What happens if my website is not reacting for a few seconds, or my application needs some time to come up, or if I have an upload where I don't know how long this will last. So how can I deal with that in Ranorex? I will show that to you now with the help of a small application. I will take this small application and I will show to you, if you click the Start File Upload button, the upload will be started. And you see the progress bar went up, the value goes to 70, 18, 90 and 100, and finally I'm there, and I have a few indicators here that my upload was successful. On the one hand, we can run it again. You see everything is enabled here, that value is 0, and here we don't have this completed text. So if I start the file upload, you will see these controls are disabled. Here this number is changing, and when the upload is finished, upload completed will be there. So I have a few indicators which shows me, okay, the upload was completed. I will use that. Let me show you how. Let's create a new recording. Let's call it sync, and I click the record button. I run that application from my desktop. It's called upload.exe. There we go. And now I click the start button and I click the start file upload, and now I'm waiting. And then I want to validate that, for example, I have, as mentioned before, many options for the validation. I can validate that this element exists, or that this element equals 100, or that these elements are enabled again. Let me take that upload completed text. I click on validate, and I want to say, alright, I want to just validate that this element exists. So that is the element I'm looking for. Let's double check. Yeah, that's the one. And now I say, I just want to validate that the element exists. That's fine. I click OK, and then I close the application. Stop it. Alright, let's play back these 4 actions. It's just a mouse click on Start File Upload, and then a validate exists on that upload completed text. Let's start that here. And now you will see it will start the application. It will click on the Start File Upload button. And now I'm already waiting for the element finished, this upload completed text. I'm waiting for it. There it is. And now I'm closing the application. So you saw Ranorex waited for the element to appear, and then it moves on with the next action, which is the action to close the application. Let's take a look on that here on the action table again. Run the application, start the file upload, and then I immediately have a validate exists for that element, and after that action was successfully executed, I'm closing the application. So you see, you don't have to care about that. Ranorex was automatically waiting. But how is it working? Very simple. For each action is an action performed on a repository item, like my mouse click here, it's on the button 1, or my validation against the I'll be finished element. Each action will be executed when the element is available. Okay? It will not be executed if the element is not available. But if the element is there, immediately Ranorex will run the action on it. In our case, it's a validation. In addition to that, we do have a search timeout, which defines how long Ranorex is going to search for the element before throwing an error. You can access this and also change that search timeout here through the context menu. It's 30 seconds here by default. That means I'm looking for the I'll be finished text for 30 seconds. If it's there in 30 seconds, I'm fine. I will immediately perform the validation and move on with the next action. If it's not there within 30 seconds, I will receive an error. And this search timeout is working for really each action. It doesn't matter if it is a validation or a mouse click or something else. Therefore, if I play this again, you will see, alright, I'm clicking on the Start File Upload button, and then I'm waiting for that search timeout, and the element is available within that search timeout. The validation will be executed and the next action as well. And to show you it also works for a mouse click and not just for a validation, let's change this action number 3. I want to do a mouse click on that LB finish tag. So I just drag and drop the respective element up, and I say I want to have a mouse click over there, and I delete the validation. So my new recorded steps are, my new actions are clicking the Start File Upload button, and then I will click the LB finish text, and then I close the application. So nothing new. The only difference is I have now, instead of the validation, a mouse click, but we will find the same behavior because I'm clicking Start File Upload. It's waiting now. And then click the Upload Completed text and close the application. Okay, there you go. Upload was successful, and that's how Ranorex is doing the synchronization. You see through the search timeout, and you don't have to care about it. You don't have to make sure the element is there in order to perform a mouse click. Ranorex will do that automatically for you. In the meantime, I received a question about a negative test case execution. We will talk about this, as mentioned in the introduction, later when in the second part of the webinar, we will talk about error handling. So we will talk about that later. And now let me ask the audience if you have questions about synchronization here. So it looks like everything is clear, so we'll wait for another, let's say, 15 seconds to get the chance to vote for this poll for everybody here. All right, everything seems to be clear. Let's close this poll here, and we move on now with the next topic on our channel. I want to talk about object identification here now. Before I talk about object identification, yeah, I will start with object identification now. That is fine. So currently we have here my 10 actions, right? And my action number 8, for example, that is a mouse click with the left mouse button on the location 29 and 16. That is a relative coordinate which was captured during the recording, and it's a coordinate within the button Add. During the recording, I was clicking that specific location in my button Add. I can also change that to center, then it will click the center of my button Add. And you see my action number 8, like all other actions, are executed on a repository item. The repository was already introduced in the startup webinar to you as well, but let me show you very quick here that this repository, which is displayed here on the bottom side, is really a UI mapping. So here is my button Add, where this action is executed on, and if I do here a highlight element, then you will see, all right, there is really a connection between the button Add here in the repository and here on the application under test. Now, I also mentioned in the startup webinars that you can change the names of these logic names here on the left side. You can also add here simple folder or rooted folder structure. So like I can group my buttons into this folder here, and then I can rename my button to just add, since I already know based on the simple folder, the parent folder, that this is about a button. Now we do have several elements in there. As you can see, we also have elements in there from my actions previously recorded, which I deleted at the beginning of the webinar, like the close button of my Windows Explorer window. So we have here a cleanup functionality. The cleanup functionality will go over your project and will check all recording modules or code and all code modules if these repository items are referenced somewhere. If they are referenced, then we shouldn't delete it, of course, but if these items are not used in the project, then we can get rid of it by deleting it, and that's the cleanup functionality. So if I click here on cleanup, it will give me a list of elements which are not needed within my project, and through the button OK, I can delete those elements. And as you can see, in my project I just need my elements from form VIP application and from the upload form. So in that way I can also clean up my repository from time to time, just to have only elements in there which are really needed. Now on the right side we have Ranorex Path. The Ranorex Path identifies the elements on the user interface, and I will talk about this now in more detail. I will explain to you how Ranorex is doing the identification through that Ranorex Path, and also will show you some features of that. And there is also a question about that here in the questions panel, that in the Ranorex Path you see some question marks and stuff like that. I will explain that to you in the next 10 minutes, I guess, what that means. All right. In order to work on the Ranorex Path and talk about this, I will use Ranorex Spy. That is a tool for analyzing the application. We have one here integrated to the Ranorex Studio, but I prefer to use the outside one. I have here it on the desktop, or you can also find it in the Windows Start menu, as you can see here. So let's start this Spy here, this external Spy. And yeah, before I will talk about the Ranorex Path now, let me give you a very brief overview about Ranorex Spy, which is the tool for analyzing the application, right? So I have here as a root node of this element browser here on the left side, my host computer, and under my host computer I see everything which can be automated by Ranorex. So you see I can automate GoToMeeting, I can automate my PowerPoint here, I can automate of course my VIP application, and if I have mobile devices connected they will be listed here, and also if I have a website open it will be listed here as well. So that really shows what I can automate with Ranorex. Now if I select a specific element here like my form, then I will get in the Overview tab all attributes which are currently available for the element selected on the left side. And as you can see here, I get here several attributes out of the form VIP application. I can use all these attributes for validation, as we already did, or for object identification. We will talk about that in the next minutes. I do also have here a screenshot where I can navigate through my application as well, or I can directly navigate here through the application here in the tree. And the easiest way is of course to use the track button, and with the track button I can track an element I'm interested in. Alright, that was a short introduction into Ranorex Studio, and yeah, into Ranorex Spy, sorry, and we are now talking about Ranorex Path. We are starting here from the Ranorex repository where we have this Ranorex Path on the right side, and I'm going to explain this to you now, how Ranorex identifies elements with that Ranorex Path on the user interface. On this slide you can see 3 forms. Each form has 2 containers in there, and each container has 4 buttons. Now I want to show you how Ranorex identifies here on this example the button 1 in container 1 in form 1. That's done by a Ranorex Path. The first slash here means I'm looking on my whole computer for a form, and I want to have the form where the title attribute equals form 1. In that way I am identifying form 1 here on my host computer. Under my form 1 I have 2 containers. I want to have the container where the caption equals container 1, and then I'm looking for a button where the text equals button 1. This Ranorex Path now identifies the button 1 in container 1 in form 1, and you already see it is using different attributes and the structure information of the application. Let's take a look on that on the live view, we have the Ranorex paths here, and we also do have these Ranorex paths here in the Ranorex Spy, which I will use now for explaining the Ranorex path to you. As you can see, this Ranorex path here on top describes now the identification of my button ad, and it describes the way I'm going through this tree view here. So I'm looking for a form where the control name attribute equals form VIP application, and then under that I'm looking for a button where the control name equals BT ad. And that's the way I'm identifying this button on the user interface. And in the repository, you see here the same path for the form and the same path here for the button. There you go. I already mentioned before that I can use any attribute for identification. If I, let's say, if I prefer to use a specific attribute because I know that is holding good information set by my developer, then I can use that. In my case here, it's automatically taking the control name that is the most robust or strongest attribute for identification for a client application. That's in the background set by the developer and will be static even if I have the same application running in a different language. Nevertheless, if I think that the text is better for identification, for example, if this control name has dynamic content in there, then it's better to take another attribute like the text. Then I can do that. I can identify this button through the text. How can I do it? I go to the path editor here, and then I take, instead of the control name, the text. Add. And then you see everything is green here, and here also you see the element is identified by Ranorex here. I'm using now the text for identification. If I think that this is a better Ranorex path, then I go back to my studio project after analyzing it. I found a better path for the button ad. I do the same change here. I click on edit, and then I take, instead of the control name, the text, if I think that that is a better Ranorex path. And I can double check here, highlight element, there you go. Alright, so any questions on that using another attribute? If not, then I want to also show you what happens if I have a multilingual application and I cannot use the control name for identification. I have to go with the text attribute. Then, of course, that Ranorex path won't find my button ad on a German version. How can I deal with that? I can also add here an or text equals hinzufügen, which is the German version of add. And there you go. It will find it now on an English or a German version. Now let me show you a very nice feature interesting for programmers in the audience. I can do the following. With a Ranorex path like this, I would receive a list of all buttons currently available in my form. You see, all my 5 buttons are there. As a programmer, one line of code, one for each loop, and I can iterate over these elements, read out all those attributes, or perform actions on it. And yeah, I can use that for a validation, or as I mentioned before, I can also click on that buttons here in a loop, one after another. That's possible to do with Ranorex with such a path. Or if I want to validate that at a specific time on my application and the test, there should be, let's say, 4 enabled buttons. How can I do that? I define a path which represents all enabled buttons, and I will validate against the row count of that list which I receive. So I go there, I create a path, all buttons which are enabled true. And now you will see I receive now a list of 4 buttons, and I can validate on the count of the list for my validation point. That's of course a solution which can be done by a programmer. A non-programmer can still do the same validation by defining these 4 buttons and check if these buttons exist. So you see, a programmer can write one line of code for that, while a non-programmer can still do that through defining 4 actions in our example. And last but not least, let me also show you that you can, of course, also use different attribute for identification here. I'm using here the enabled attribute now, but if I go to the path editor, I can also say I want to have the button which is enabled and has the control name BT add. In that way, I can also identify my button add. Alright, any questions on the things I presented to you until now? So there is one. How about custom controls? Custom controls are supported by Ranorex out of the box, so I know other tools need some special implementation, or they call it descriptive programming. We don't need that. So if you have a custom control like Telerik control or DevExpress or Infragistics, it will work out of the box. And if you are facing any issues with identification of custom controls, then please reach out to me. We can also tune some things in the identification so that it is easier to identify those elements. But normally it will work out of the box. In case you see a different behavior, just drop me an email. We can work on that as well. Alright, so there is another question, how to use regular expression while identifying the element using Ranorex XPath. That is also possible to do, and that is also something I will present to you in the second half when we will create an example with an error. Then I can also directly show this to you in an example. And another question is, can I parameterize this property values? Yes, you can also do that, and that will be also explained in the next, I guess, 10 minutes. All right, now we already saw now the Ranorex XPath for a client application, and yeah, I will show it to you now also for a web application, just for you to see that there is no difference in working with a client or a web application. So I have here this VIP database application we had before as a web application, and look, the same behavior. You can track this element. You see a Ranorex XPath on top, how this works, or also here for that element you also see a Ranorex XPath on top. So no big deal. Automation for client, desktop, and desktop application, mobile, and web application works the same with Ranorex. Now let's move on and talk about these question marks in the path. There was already a question before in the questions panel about that, and I want to demonstrate to you now what this is about. Imagine you have several versions of your application. So that's version 1, let's say that is version 2, and that is version 3. I have 3 different versions of one and the same application. The only difference is the UI changed a little bit. And now I want to explain you what we mean by robust automation. It is possible to create one test case which can automate all these 3 applications. And how can I do that, and how is this working? So let's take a look on that input field here. The input field here on top, it gets identified through this Ranorex XPath, including these question marks. These question marks are wildcards. They are representing an optional element. That means this Ranorex XPath looks for my text element in the form directly, or between the form and the text can be one or another element. So it can deal with changes to the user interface. Therefore, this Ranorex XPath, which is also captured here, as you can see, with the 2 question marks, this Ranorex XPath is that robust that it can already identify the first name field on the second and the first version of my application. Look, I use one and the same path, and I'm finding two elements with this Ranorex path, here and here. So you see, out of the box, Ranorex can already deal with small changes to the user interface of my application under test. And that's very nice. Imagine you have version 1 and then a release of version 2, and you don't have to change anything in your test cases. You can run it on one and also on the other application, thanks to these question marks here. What happens if I have more than two optional elements between my form and my text? Like I have this here on version 3 of the application. As you can see, this path here won't find the first name field on version 3 because there is more structure between. I can of course extend this and add one more, or do I need one more? Okay, I need one more question mark, so two more question marks, and then I guess I'm finding it now in all the three versions, here, here, and here. That will work, but something much better and much easier is this. Two slashes at this position will say I'm looking for my text with accessible name, first name on the whole application. I don't care in which depth it is located. It's looking for that field everywhere in my application. And there you go, this path finds it here, here, and here. That's a very robust and dynamic Ranorex path. This can really deal with any change to the user interface. As long as the text with accessible name, first name is somewhere available with my form, I will identify the element. So I hope that makes sense for you as well. And for web pages, as you saw before, it is already using such a Ranorex path. So let me open that again. So here, oops, sorry. There you go. Here we already identify these elements also with this two/paths, and here it's a special situation. Here it is taking the method getElementById of the browser, which is the most flexible and fastest way of identification of an element in a web page. This path here tells me I'm looking for a DOM, a web page where the domain equals ranorex.com, and somewhere within that I'm looking for an input tag where the ID equals first name. And the same here, if you have now a dynamic ID here, if this ID contains dynamic content, like for JavaScript frameworks, then just use another attribute for identification. And if you have such a dynamic ID, if you know that your ID is changing all the time, if you are using JavaScript frameworks like Sencha or Google Web Toolkit or XJavaScript, then please write a short note to the questions panel here that you are facing issues with dynamic ID. Then I will send a link to a blog where it is described how to configure your Ranorex recorder in order to not use the ID for identification. Okay, so please let me know if you have dynamic IDs JavaScript frameworks. Then just drop me a short notice here to the questions panel or an email, then I will provide further information on that. All right. Now, before we will move on with the presentation, I want to show you one more feature, which is a really, really useful feature. Until now, I presented to you that you can use any attribute for identification. You can also define out of the box. Ranorex defines robust Ranorex paths, including these wildcards, question marks, and I also showed to you how you can define a very robust Ranorex path with these two slashes. And now I want to show you the flexibility of this Ranorex path for identification, which is very useful, especially when you're working with tables. Imagine on this table, I want to identify, let's say, the checkbox of Joe Soap here. Okay, so how can I do that? I track my checkbox, and let's see. My checkbox gets identified through that path, and it's not containing any information that this is the checkbox of Joe Soap, right? You just see in my table I'm looking for a checkbox. All right. Also, no attribute of the checkbox gives me the information that this is the checkbox of Joe Soap. So how can I identify now that element through Joe Soap? I can identify that checkbox here through these elements over there. Let me show you how. Let me track soap first of all. You see soap is the text here located in the row which is also containing my checkbox. Now I can do the following. I can do a relative navigation in the path. From that element I can go back to the respective row. So I can identify the row containing the name soap. Take a look on the top right corner. I type in / point / That brings me back from the text element to the parent element, which is my cell. I need one more .. then I'm on the respective row. I'm on the row of soap. And then somewhere in there, that means 2 slashes, there should be a checkbox. There you go. That's the checkbox of soap. And if I change the position of the checkbox here, then you will see it's so flexible it will also find the checkbox over there. Because I'm now looking for the text soap, and then I do a relative navigation back and identify the checkbox of soap. I hope that makes sense for you as well, and that is very useful. Also, you can identify other elements, not just in tables. Look over there. If my input field here, let's say the ID won't contain any information or has dynamic information, then I need to identify that in a different way. Then I can use that as well. I identify the first name field and then go back / point / to the parent element, and somewhere in there should be a text element. Or let's see how it is called in HTML. It is called input. All right, not text. HTML calls that input. And there we go. And it's that flexible. If I change that to from first to last name, it will identify my last name element. Again, here I'm identifying another element. So I'm identifying the text element by another element. Alright, so lots of information and features presented for Ranorex XPath and object identification. Are there any questions beside the one question about regular expression? Here, the regular expression I will present to you later. But are there any other questions about object identification and Ranorex XPath at this point? All right, there are a few questions. So close that here. The first question is how to identify submenus under main menu. Not an issue at all. So let's open Internet Explorer again. That should contain a submenu, I guess. So you mean how to identify such menus, right? So first of all, if you want to record some actions on such menus, then let me demonstrate that to you. Then you really have to simulate the user. I do here now a global recording just to record some actions here, and I click here that element now. And if you then move the mouse to safety and then click on check this website, and I stop that here now, then I will see, okay, I have two actions. A click on tools and a click on check this website. That will not work because the check this website, this will only be visible if I click or move the mouse to the safety menu, right? So therefore, let me record that again. Let me show you how you can do that. You can enable here the hotkeys for the recorder, and there's a hotkey M. With M I can record mouse movements. I click here, I move the mouse to safety, I press M on the keyboard, which records a mouse movement to that element. Then I record a mouse movement to delete browsing history, and then I click on check this website. So I really record the steps as a physical user would do. A mouse click on the tools, a mouse move to safety, a mouse move to delete and browsing, and then I go down. So let's play this back. Alright, you saw the mouse movements and it's working like that. So is there any further question about how to identify submenus under main menu? Maybe I can also show you now one more thing, how to identify such submenus in SPY. In SPY, if you use the track button, then if you click here, then you already track that element. You can disable that tracking by pressing the F12 key, the function key, the F12 key. If I press that and I hold it, you see the tracking is disabled, right? So I disable it now, I click on it, I release F12 again, and then I have tracking mechanism again. So in that way you can also identify this element here. Or you can also use the instant tracking of Ranorex. You position the mouse over the element you're interested in, and then you press the Control key and the Windows key in the bottom left corner of your keyboard. That's doing the instant tracking. So the left Control key and the left Windows key together, and you are tracking, as you can see in the background, the respective element. That's also here disabled. Explained. Press Control plus left Windows for instant tracking. Okay, I guess this answers the question how to identify sub-menus under main menu. Another question is, can we identify index to identify object? Yes, you can do that, of course. So let me find a good example for that. Let's say I want to let's add here some elements. Martin S. Just add here some elements, and if you want to identify the radio button of, as you can see here, of the first row, then you already see here the index. It's taking here the second row because the first one is the table row for the headers, and the first data row is the second row of the whole table. So you already see here the index, and then you say I want to identify the second row, the first table, the radio button. Let's see if it's called radio. No, it's not radio. It's again an input tag, I guess. Yes. So input. There you go. And if you want to identify the radio button of the last row, then you just type -1. That will give you the last, or -2, the second last. So that is also very useful. If I add here a few more elements, then you see, all right, this -2 identifies the radio button of the second last row, or the last row. Okay, I hope that makes sense for you as well. And if you have further questions, just write that. And there is another question, how to identify the dynamic web tables. No issue about that. Like I presented to you with the client application table, or here we already have a table, so that's very easy. So on the one hand, you can say I want to identify the first row, the second row, or the third row, or I want to identify, let's say, the radio button of the element with last name Tetas. Makes no sense, but I wrote it like that. So slash point point slash, you can do exactly that again. You look for an input tag in there. Okay, and if you add another element, I will still find this. There you go, you see? Or I delete a few before that, so that's a dynamic web table, but it's still finding the element I'm looking for. Okay, you can do that through that Ranorex path. You don't have to program. Okay? So, further questions on Ranorex path at this point? All right. Looks like everything is fine here. And before we go now into a short break, I want to show you now how to set up a data-driven test. A data-driven test means I will read the data from the outside, from a spreadsheet, for example, and I already have here now a test case defined. It's called add one person, and my add one person test case should be executed a few times based on data from a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet prepared here on my desktop. It has here in the third column, in the third worksheet called best practices, 3 columns, and I want to show you now how to use that spreadsheet for the data-driven test. I go over there to my Ranorex Studio, and I have to do 3 steps in order to run this in a data-driven way. First of all, I have to define some variables within my modules. So there we will also talk about how to parameterize the Ranorex path. So after I created the variables, I define the data source where I want to read the data from. That's step number 2. Step number 3 is to create a bridge between the data source and the variables. So let's do these 3 steps. I go here to add VIP. And in the add VIP module, instead of the key sequence for typing in John, I create through that context menu here a new variable called variable first name. I will do the same for action number 4, variable last name. By the way, I can also define variables for validations like that. It's the same way, variable last name. Well, let's rename that here to capitalized N. All right. Now, I also want to make action number 5 in a data-driven way. The action number 5, it is a mouse click on a respective element on the movie list item. If I want to select the music item instead of the movie item, then this action here, the mouse click on the movie list item, will be performed on a different item. That means I have to set a variable within my Ranorex path, since the identification of that element is I'm looking for my list item with accessible name movie. At this position it has to be music if I want to select the music item. So how can I do that? I can on the one hand click here on the edit, or I go to the context menu here and I say make item variable. And there it is. It's opening now the SPY, and I define instead of the hard-coded value movie here my variable. Variable category. Click on apply, and now I have 3 variables defined here, here, and here. I can also rename the logic name here to category. All right, so we will now save that here and We have now 3 variables in my module addVIP. We already see these 3 variables here. And now I create the data source. I define the data source where I want to read my data from. I go to the respective test case. I say data source, and in here I have 4 options. I can create a simple data table, or I use a spreadsheet, I use a CSV file, or I can also read the data from a database. But we will use the spreadsheet, Excel connector, and we select the one from the desktop, book 1. Let's close this here. And we take the best practices worksheet, and then we click on OK, and we see now a preview of the data of the spreadsheet. That's it. Data source is defined. Last but not least, let's create the bridge, the data binding. I go here to data binding, and I say now the values from my spreadsheet's column first name should be connected with my variable first name of my module. The same for column last name with variable last name. And last but not least, the column category will be connected with the variable category. And there we go. The data binding is done. My 3 variables are bound. And if I run now my add one person test case, you will see, all right, I will have a data-driven test filling in John Doe and then Bob Dylan, and a data-driven click on the music item. All right, my test case was now executed 2 times, and there you go. We see here 2 iterations with that respective variables. All right, so any questions on data-driven testing? Okay, it seems to be that there is one question. One question is here. Let's wait for the poll, so we close the poll. The question is now, what was parameter section in data binding dialog? That's a good question. So go to data binding, and the parameter, here we are in the data binding of the test case, and here I can define a test case parameter. A test case parameter can also be linked to variables, and this test case parameter is like a global variable for my test case. Through the test case parameter, I can share data from one module to another. It works like that, here, for example, let's find a good example. What are we doing? Let's do this. I track here, I add this start button to my repository, and here I want to read out through get value the text of my start button. Okay, and I save that into a variable. Call it variable text. It makes no sense. I just want to show you how to share data between modules. Okay, I save that text attribute of this start button here into a variable text, and then in addVIP I want to report that value. Add new action, report variable text. And now I have 2 variables in the modules, and they are not connected or linked together until now. But now we go to this data binding, and we define here a parameter, param text. And this param text will be connected to the variable text from the start system under test, where I read out the value from the start button, and it will also be connected to the variable text of addVIP, where I write out this into the report. And in that way, I'm using that param text as some kind of global variable within my test case to share the data between that 2 modules. Does that make sense for you? Let me just play that back, then you will also see the result. So we execute the 2 iterations again. And now in the report, we see there is already this param text, that's my parameter. And in start system under test, you see getting attribute text from item start and assign its value to variable text. And this variable text is connected to the param. And then in add VIP, I'm writing out, here is this action, I'm writing out the value, which I read before. I hope that makes sense for you as well. So this is the test case parameter, and similar to that, we also do have global parameters, and these global parameters are acting like global variables, and they have the same behavior. You can bind these to variables as well, but that's just for the context of the whole test suite, while the test case parameter is just for the test case. Okay, just let me know if this answers the questions here about global and local variables and also about parameters. Just provide a short feedback on that, please. Okay, you're most welcome. Now we are approaching our break, so it is now 6 minutes past 11 my time, so let's continue in 3 minutes. Let's continue on 10 minutes past 11 my time here. Then I will show you error handling and stuff like that. So let's take 3 minutes break. I will be back in 3 minutes and talk with you at 11 minutes, or let's take a 4 minutes break, and I'm back at 11 minutes past 11 o'clock. So talk with you in 4 minutes. Alright, so I'm back and there are no further questions at the time here in the questions panel. Therefore, let's move on with the next points here on the agenda. We will now talk about error handling. I will create an example with an error. I will solve this. I will here also answer two questions from before. One question was if I can create a test case with an error, and also if I can show regular expressions within Ranorex XPath. I will exactly cover this also within that part, and then I will also enhance the existing recording with user code. Again, you don't have to write code in Ranorex, but we offer the possibility, and I want to show that flexibility to you as well. I will also talk about code modules later, and then we will create a test case manually, and at the very end we will run that from the command line as well. Alright, let's move on. Currently we have a test case here called add one person, and now I will create a new one. It's called add more persons. My add more persons test case will be something like the existing add one person test case. Therefore, I copied the whole test case here and I paste it into the add more persons test case. And now we will do the following. We reassemble this a little bit. And finally, we have now a test case called add more persons. This test case add more persons starts the application. After that, it will add one person. It will add the persons to the database in a data-driven way. This will be executed based on the data source, and then it tries to validate to 1. Here it will add, in our specific example at the time, 2 values to the database, and then it will try to validate to 1. At this time it will fail because we will have 2 entries in the database. And since validation to 1 is failing, it will stop there. Close system and the test will not be executed. First of all, let me show that to you. I play back now these actions here. So I'm clicking here, typing in John Doe and Bob Dylan, and then Ranorex will look for an element called VIP count 1. You already see this here. It's looking for an element called VIP count 1. It's not finding it, and therefore it will throw an error. Alright, first of all, let's analyze the error. The error message tells us no element found for path, and I already see here I'm looking for the text element where the accessible name equals VIP count 1. If I take a look on the screenshot, I already see, alright, VIP count 2 is there. That cannot work. In addition, my application is still open. With jump to item, I can directly analyze this. And here I see now, with the red explanation mark, it is about this element. And the element gets here identified through VIP count 1. Accessible name VIP count 1. Currently it's VIP count 2. This cannot work, of course. First of all, we have to fix the issue with the object identification. We have to work a little bit on Ranorex XPath. I click here on Edit. And now I have the following situation that I'm looking here for my form. That is fine. You see, I'm identifying the form, but not the text with accessible name VIP count 1. I'm not identifying that. Of course, if I change it here to VIP count 2, then everything is green. I can highlight the element as well, but not really a good solution, because if I have 3 elements in there, it still will fail. Therefore, we have to find a better solution for that. First of all, let me show you one option. I use here, instead of the equals, starts with. Starts with will look for an accessible name which starts with a given string, which starts with VIP count. And I'm ignoring the number at the end. That's already working. So that will work even if it's VIP count 3. As you can see, it will highlight that element as well. So that will be one solution. We can already click on apply and work with that. Another question from an attendee here was if I can use regular expressions within my object identification. Yes, you can do that. Using the tilde will match a regular expression. You define the regular expression here. I will take VIP count colon space. 0 to 9 means a number, one or more times. That will already work, as you can see. Highlight. Or \d will also work for digit, I guess. So let's see. Yeah, that also works. \d plus will also work as well. Alright, that's it. The issue of object identification is solved. I can also rename that element here from VIP count 1 to just VIP count. Alright, so if we play this back again, we will still have an error because we are still validating to 1, but we will get now a different error since we already solved the issue with object identification. Let's play that back again. So it will add the two values again. And then I will have now still an error because I'm using the module validation to 1, but the error is now different. As you can see, it's telling me now that the object was identified, but the attribute does not match the specified value. I'm looking for the validation VIP count 1, but I'm finding VIP count 2. So directly jump to the item. There we are. You see my validation to 1 performs the validation against VIP count 1. So my validation to 1 makes sense here for add 1 person, but it's not the right validation here. Therefore, we create a new recording module. We give it the name validate dynamically. And my dynamic validation should do something like the validation to 1 and will be executed at this position. So let's copy the validation to 1. My new validation is something like that. I copy that and I paste that into my dynamic validation. Now, my dynamic validation should validate on the row count of my data source, on the row count of my spreadsheet. Of course, I cannot do that on the user interface. That's a very specific validation already, but I want to highlight here that such validations are possible to do with Ranorex. Let me show you how. In user code, I convert this existing action to user code to change it. Convert to user code. It's now a user code action. Double click and I'm in the user code. First line is the reporting line, while the second line is my validation itself. Now all I have to do is replace the hard-coded value here and here with the row count of my data source. That's now real C#. I can use the .NET framework in here and the Ranorex API. I create a variable VIP count. My variable VIP count should equal from all my data sources. That's a Ranorex API class. I want to get the one with the name new connector. Now come on. That's the one. That's the name defined here, new connector. And from new connector data source, I want to have the rows, and from the rows I want to have the count. That's it. I use that now here for the validation, and here for the reporting and for the validation. That's it. In addition to that, let me also create a screenshot of my application here at this point. I just drag and drop it up and I say report screenshot. Okay, let's play this back again. And there we go, it's everything green, and my validate dynamically validates against VIP count 2, and here we have also a screenshot of the application after the validation. Alright, so that was how to fix errors, how to solve errors, how to identify what is the error about, and I also showed you how to fix an error with object identification. I also fixed the validation issue, and I already showed to you how dynamic Ranorex is. I just converted that one action into code, and I was validating against the row count of my spreadsheet. So that was already a short introduction to user code. I showed you how to convert an existing action and change it in user code. In addition to that, you can also add user code actions here in a recording to extend the recording again for user code. Let's say you want to send an email after you added one element to your database. Then send email. You just create here a user code action which is called send email. You double click, you're in the code again, and I can write here my send email code in C#. Just Google for send email C# and you will find some .NET framework code for that, which you can use in Ranorex Studio. So that means you don't have any limitation when it comes to user code. You have a full programming language in the background, not a proprietary scripting language. It's a full programming language. C# or VB.NET is offered by Ranorex here in user code. So, in addition to converting an existing action into user code or adding a user code action in the recorder, I can also create a code module. The code module will be handled like a recording module and will also be displayed here on the bottom side on the module browser. Take a look on that. I create now a code module called user code module 1, and it's already listed there as well. So you can handle it as a standard recording module. The only difference, I don't have the recorder here, of course. I have to write my code here to the run methods. And yeah, let me show you how you can work totally in code, how that works. I open my application again and the SPY, and let's say I want to fill in some values through code to that first name field. How can I do it? I take the element from the SPY, I drag and drop it over to my code, and there we are. And then I write firstname.click, firstname.press keys, and I type in my name. That works, but it's not really recommended because I have to maintain this in code, this Ranorex XPath, and in addition, if I have it on multiple code modules, I have to change the multiple code modules if I want to change the identification of that element. Therefore, more recommended or most recommended is to use Ranorex repository. I take the respective element for the repository, for example, the last name field. I drag and drop it over to my user code module. And here I am. Lastname.click. Lastname.press keys. Let's type in my last name. And then I want to create a screenshot of my whole application. that's it. I can program that as well. And as you can see here, I'm just referring here to my repository item, and I'm not losing the advantage of Ranorex repository being the central point of maintenance. So that's really recommended if you work with user code modules. How I can use now this user code module, I go over there, I create a new test case, call it code test, and I use start system under test, I use close system under test, and between this I'm running my module called user code module 1. There you go, we run now the code test. Close the application before, and you will see it works as the recorded actions, but now I wrote it on my own. Again, let me highlight, you don't need to write user code in Ranorex, but if you prefer to do that, you can do it. All right, any questions about writing user code? Oops, sorry, that was the wrong poll. Yeah, any questions about error handling? Any questions about user code at this point here? Just write the question to the questions panel if you have one. But it looks like that's fine. Yeah, then in the remaining minutes of the webinar, we will go now over creating such actions and such repository items manually. I personally really like that way of working with Ranorex because then I can really do it on my own, defining the actions, defining repository items. So let me demonstrate that to you. I will use cnn.com, by the way, for that. I open now CNN webpage and I create a CNN test case, and in there I add a new recording module. I call it OpenCNN. My OpenCNN is empty, that is fine, and since I'm using now a new application, I will also create a new repository. It's recommended to have at least one repository for one application. So new repository, I call it CNN repository. And my CNN repository should be the default repository for new modules. And let me also, just for maintenance reasons, add here a folder also to my project, just to keep things organized. I drag and drop the repository over there, and I also drag and drop OpenCNN over there. There you go. I create another module, search on CNN, and another one, validate CNN search, and finally create another one called close CNN. So I already have a plan what I'm going to do. I have my modules here. They are currently still empty, but I will define the actions in there. So define my test case here. Alright, that's fine now. Let's start over. OpenCNN. OpenCNN, I define everything manually. Add new action, open browser, cnn.com. Click on play, and there you go, it will open now cnn.com in my Internet Explorer browser. There it is, the website is already open. And now I go back to my project. I go into Search CNN. I can record some actions here now, but I will show you now how to define these actions manually. Also how to define repository items manually. I take this button here, track an element. I track the element I'm interested in for running an action on. That's the input field here. It's now already part of my repository. Let's take it from there, drag and drop it up. perform a mouse click on it, and after that I want to have a key sequence. The key sequence will type in Graz, which is the city where the headquarters here in Europe is located of Ranorex. And after that, I want to click the search button. Again, I can of course record the action, track the element here. Another option is the following. I can also track that element with the SPY. And there is the element. Here I have the advantage that I can also immediately change the Ranorex path if needed. So I analyze this. In my form, somewhere I'm looking for input tag with type image. Not really robust. Imagine I have a second image in the form. Then this could cause side effects. I want to take another attribute for identification, but I see for that respective input tag, nobody gives me the idea that this is my search button. Or how about that? Oh, that may be the source. Yeah, we can use that. That we say, okay, we can use a regular expression here again. The source, where is the source? Attribute, there it is. It's like that. Yeah, let's say I'm looking for anything containing search. Dot asterisk, search dot asterisk. That's not working, I don't know why. Let's see again. Let's track the element again. Or let's take the div here. We can also take that div here that's representing also the search button. Let's take this div here, and the identification of that div, I will take the class attribute. That's a good attribute, so that is more robust. I will take exactly this Ranorex path, and then I drag and drop it over to my repository, and there you go, my mouse click. Before I execute this now, let me do some maintenance. That's my CNN page. Under it I have a simple folder, main page. Drag and drop this over to my main page, and this is the search button, and that is my search fields. Alright, I have a well-maintained repository and a clean recording, and click on play. It will play back these 3 actions. Alright, and now we go back to the Ranorex Studio again and validate CNN search. Should just validate that this text here contains the value Graz. I will take the SPY again, I track the element I am interested in, and I immediately check which attribute I want to validate on. It will be the tag value. I drag and drop it over there. Validation. Tag value should match Graz. That's fine. And before we run that, another simple folder, search results page, and there we go. We drag and drop that over, and that's again a search field. Play it back. It will validate against this tag value. Successful validation. And now, last but not least, close CNN will do the following. It will close my website, and the most generic way is to close the respective element in the repository, which is my CNN element here. Close application. In that way, I defined now the CNN test case manually, already split it into modules, have a well-maintained repository, and just really actions in the recording which I really need. No unneeded actions are there. And yeah, that's also a way of working with Ranorex. And it's up to you if you use the recorder, if you use this approach, defining everything manually, or if you want to write some lines of user code. That's really up to the user working with Ranorex, full flexibility. So at the very end of the webinar, I want to run this now from the command line as well, just to demonstrate to you the available program arguments and my exe file, this test suite with my test cases is represented as an exe file, is located in the output folder. I can access this here from open output folder. And here I have so many files, reporting files, and also I do have these two files here, the exe file and the rxtst file. If I copy these two files to another folder, let's say I create on the desktop a folder called run. I just want to show or simulate to you how you can also run it from a different location or from a different computer, for example. You just need these two files, and on another computer, of course, at least the runtime license of Ranorex. And if you now switch over to the command line, I go to that respective directory, desktop/run, and there we go. We have here these two files. And with best practices exe/?, I will receive now a list of available program arguments. And here you see, alright, there are many arguments available. You can fully configure your test suite from the outside, filling in test case parameters, global parameters, or configuring the reporting. You can also run specific test cases or test configurations. Let's exactly use that. I will show you the test case program argument, and I say I want to run the test case with the name. Let's run the CNN test case. And you see it now executed from the command line. And that's it. In the background, next to my exe file, there is the report created. And in the report, you see again, everything was executed as expected. And this is now the report displayed in the report viewer. And you can also open that report in browser. Just a small change. Rename the rxlog file into rxlog.html and rename the rxlog.data file into rxlog.html.data. With these two simple changes, I can open it in any browser. As you can see here, that's working since the reports are based on XML. It's quite easy to use it for post-processing or to open it in a browser. All right, before I go to remaining questions, let me show you some summing up slides here. Within that presentation, you saw really best practices with Ranorex Studio, and I just want to highlight here now again the main features of Ranorex. So maybe you have multiple environments, different devices in your company and different software applications. We offer a tool, one tool, NUI technology. You can automate mobile, desktop, and web applications with Ranorex. For frequent software releases, upgrades and changes to your software under test, we offer a robust automation. I talked about that when we worked on Ranorex by, remember the /path or the question marks. You can really create one script which can be executed on any version on your application. For multiple teams, different skill sets and responsibilities, we offer a broad acceptance within your project team. You saw that the domain tester can work with Ranorex. Also, a programmer will be able to write some lines of code. So that is what we mean with broad acceptance. At the beginning, I mentioned that you can integrate Ranorex seamlessly into existing environments. Therefore, you can integrate this into your agile processes and comprehensive tool chains for seamless integration. And for the time and resource critical to manage the quality of your software, we offer a quick return on investment. It's quite easy and quite fast to define initial test cases with Ranorex. You can reuse the modules for different test cases, and in that way you can very quick define different test cases, and you can run these test cases over and over again, which definitely increases your quality of the software and gives you a quick return on invest. Let's take a closer look on the roles maybe in your project team. Maybe you have a domain tester, maybe you have developers in there, and maybe you also have a hybrid role in the middle of that, which is user, he's an expert on the application and the test, and maybe this user also has some development background. Then you might have your test automation expert. Let's take a look on the three roles again. The domain tester might mainly work with the recorder, defining actions in the recorder with the record button. This will also create a Ranorex repository. On the other hand, the programmer can take the full advantage, directly work with the .NET Ranorex API, defining the repository manually and writing code modules. And this test automation expert we talked about a minute before can really use all these advantages. On the one hand, simple, just record some actions, or if it's a little bit more complex, define actions manually in the action table of the recorder, or if really further functionalities are needed, just go into the code and write some lines of code. So you see, all these three roles can work with this one single tool, which is Ranorex Studio. Now we do have customers all around the world, as you can see on this map, currently about 1,600. We also do have partners all around the world. We have service partners and also training partners. If you're interested in getting a service partner or getting a training from a partner, just contact our sales. My colleagues from the sales team, they will provide further information on that, of course. We are mainly headquartered here in Central Europe in Austria. We are doing the development here, and we do also have a North American headquarter over there in the Clearwater area in Florida to provide services to our North American clients as well. All right, so that's the end of my presentation, and let's go over to your questions. There is one question. By changing the report extensions to rxlog.html, can these be viewed in any PC where Ranorex is not installed? Exactly. You don't need the Ranorex installation by viewing the reports in HTML. These are just these reports, they are just based on XML and can be viewed by any computer with a browser installed. Any questions from your side? All right, at the time no questions are there, let me show you an outline slide here. So we will follow up with our contact details. We will also include the link to download the video of this session. For further questions, or if you want to discuss a few things with me in a personal session, just reply to the follow-up email. We are glad to help on that. And also I want to highlight here again our Ranorex screencasts, the forum, which is an active community where you already find lots of information, and of course also the blog. So if you have an issue, you just go to our website, you use the search over there. Let's say you want to add your test cases into, let's say, Quality Center. Just take the search and you will find for example, this blog about that. And this search here will look the whole website, forum, blog, website, and user guide. Another question is parallel multi-browser testing possible? Normally, parallel testing is not possible because you only have one mouse, you only have one keyboard, and therefore on one computer it's not possible to do. If you want to simulate load testing with that, then you can, for example, have a few virtual machines, for example, using a floating runtime license, and that's the cheapest license, the runtime license, and in that way maybe you fire one and the same test case at the same time against one server, so that might be possible to do. But on one computer, parallel testing is not possible since you have just one mouse and one keyboard. There's a question about keyword-driven tests. Any inputs on keyword-driven tests? So let's take the search. Keyword-driven testing. We do have a blog about that. And keyword-driven test automation framework with Ranorex. I will send this to you here. You can take a look on that, how you can achieve this in Ranorex Studio. Any further questions? So I hope I answered all the questions you posted until now to the questions panel. And yeah, it looks like there are no questions anymore. Then I want to say thank you for the attention. Thank you for taking the time to take a look on this best practices video. I hope webinar. I hope you this proved beneficial to you. I hope you saw many useful things within that presentation. If you have further questions, just drop us an email. Just reply to the follow-up email. We are glad to help. And yeah, maybe talk with you soon in a personal meeting or on a phone call. I want to say again, thank you for the attention. Also, thank you for the questions. Yeah, talk with you soon. Have a nice day. Take care. Bye.